Good day, children, and welcome to another episode of I Help You With Stuff. Today we're going to be helping each other with subtracting decimals and stuff like that. And as you can see, I've written the same problem a couple different ways. We got it written this way as well as this way. Now, this is the way I recommend evaluating the problems, because if you're going to subtract decimals, it's very important that you line them up, which is why it helps to write them vertically. See how they're lined up perfectly? So that's why you'll see both of those examples. I'm going to go through several examples slowly in the hopes that I can be of assistance to you. So, without further ado, let's dive right into it. Now, we've lined up our decimals vertically. Very important to do that with addition and subtraction, because then you can just subtract like normal. What is 7 subtract 3? 4. And then what is 8 subtract 2? 6. And then when you get to the decimal, you just drop it straight down right there and move on to the next column. What is 0 subtract 3? Well, we can't do that without borrowing, so we borrow from the 7, which turns it into a 6, and now this becomes a 10, and then 10 subtract 3 is 7. And now we have 6 subtract 5 for the last column, which is 1. And that's our answer. Our answer is 17.64, or 17 and 64 hundredths. Let's try another example problem. Once again, I've simply taken this problem and I've lined up the decimals over here. Boom. Because that's going to make it very easy to solve. Now we just subtract like normal. What is 1 subtract 5? We know we can't do that, so we got to borrow from the 6, which turns that into a 5, and this becomes an 11. What is 11 subtract 5? Well, we know 11 subtract 5 is 6. And then the next column is, what is 5 subtract 3? 5 subtract 3 is 2. Now that we've come to the decimal, we bring the decimal straight down every time with addition and subtraction. And now we move on to the next column. What is 9 subtract 1? 9 subtract 1 is 8. And then what is 6 subtract nothing? 6 subtract nothing is 6. Which gives us a final answer of 68.26, or 68 and 26 hundredths. Dun, 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 dun. Let's do another example. Boom. Once again, you can see that I have lined up the decimals over here, convenient for you, so that you can see that it's a simple matter of subtraction once you do that. What is 8 subtract 6? Well, we know that 8 subtract 6 is 2. Moving on to the next column. What is 0 subtract 9? Well, you know you can't do that without borrowing, so we borrow from the 8, which turns it into a 7. And now we have 10 subtract 9, which is 1. Now that we've reached the decimal, we drop it straight down, and we move on to the next column. What is 7? I should do this. 7 subtract 6. We know that 7 subtract 6 is 1. Thus, our answer is 1.12, or 1 and 12 hundredths. Let's try another one. Let's try another one. Goodness gracious. All right. Now, I've lined up the decimals, and now I can subtract like normal. What is 9 subtract 1? 8. Exactly. Next column. So we did that one. Let's do this next one. What is 1 subtract 7? We cannot do that. We have to borrow, so that becomes a 4, and now that becomes an 11. And we know that 11 subtract 7 is 4. We've come to the decimal, so we're going to bring it straight down and put it right there. And now, finally, we come to 4 subtract 3, which is, in fact, 1. Which means our answer is 1.48, or, do you know the name of it as a decimal? 1 and 48 hundredths. That is correct. Let's try another one. Let's try another one. Let's try another one right now. So you can see we got a decimal. We can even drop the decimal ahead of time because it's lined up. We know it's got to be there. Let's drop it down. And then we're going to go ahead and Subtract like normal. What is 3 subtract 9? Well, we can't do that. We got to borrow. But we can't really borrow from that 0. We have to go all the way over to this 6. That becomes a 5. This becomes a 9. And this becomes a 13. So now the question is, what is 13 subtract 9? Well, we know that 13 subtract 9 is 4. And now we move on to the next column, which is 9 subtract 8. 9 subtract 8 is going to be 1. We've already conveniently brought the decimal down. So now we're on to our next column. What is 5 subtract 6? We can't do that without borrowing. So we borrow from the 9, which makes that an 8. And now we have 15. 15 subtract 6. And we know that 15 subtract 6 is 9. And then finally, we come to the final column, and that is 8 subtract 4, which is 4. And thus the difference is 49.14, or 49 and 1400ths. And for good measure, let's do one more. Once again, we have conveniently lined up the decimals for you. Let's bring it directly down and drop it right from the beginning, and then subtract like normal. This works for both addition and subtraction of decimals. 5 subtract 7. Now, we can't do that. We have to borrow from the 7, which now makes that a 6. And now we have 15 subtract 7. And we know that 15 subtract 7 is 8. And now we have 6 subtract nothing is simply 6. We've brought the decimal directly down. We can now move on to the next column. 4 subtract 2 is 2. And then 1 subtract nothing is nothing. And there you have it, folks. The difference is 12.68, or 12 and 68 hundredths. I do hope this video was helpful to you. If it was, give yourself a pat on the back and say hi sometime. No, you don't have to say hi. Just pass it on to someone else. Be a very nice and math tutorage type kind of person. Y'all have a good one. Bye.